Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI Mondays and time for another single car championship. And this time with the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2. Tonight we are bringing you round 2 from the Temple of Speed, also known as Monza. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, John Dalton. Alongside me is a new face, who I'm sure you'll welcome very warmly to the box, Callum Kerwin. And with Ryan Gill behind the cameras, and of course next door to us, as always, the live stewards. Welcome everyone.
Thank you. It's fun to be here. It's a little new thing for me. I probably should explain a little bit about myself. I do motorsport engineering. I'm currently studying a degree in motorsport engineering. I also run racing cars from time to time on the side, so do a lot of data, do a lot of things that are quite transferable to sim racing. Obviously, been into sim racing for quite a while as well, and thought helping out with RCI would be a fun way to spend Monday nights with John in a commentary box. So, yeah, Super Trofeo cars, very, very interesting cars. Obviously, last week did manage to watch the race despite not being able to be here, and seemed like they were quite competitive. Obviously, there's a lot of single car makes in real life. You struggle to find that they're actually not single. They're sort of not fairly similar. There's quite a big difference between each car, but apart from a few differences in setup, it seemed like they were able to follow quite closely.
Yeah, definitely so. Last week, Imola provided some great racing. As always, we had the top two separated by less than half a second when it came down to the line. But for tonight, we are at Monza as we ride on board now with Pedro Marquez. Down into turn one, a very tight chicane. Flick it right, flick it left. Be very careful of the anti-cut curbs and try and maximise your exit as much as you can towards the Curva Grande. Some drivers choose to take the right-hand side of the road. Some drivers choose to navigate out to the left and swoop back in. But now as we run towards the second chicane, which is the Variante della Roggia, very hard on the brakes, flicking it again. Be very careful of the anti-cut curbs, quite high on the inside, can really upset the car, and not a lot of room to the gravel trap. And now we head towards Lesmo 1, and of course follows Lesmo 1 is Lesmo 2. Two very banked corners, a little bit of inside curb on the second part, not too bad. A lot of runoff on the first part. Be very careful over this one. Very easy to get some track limits upon exit, not too much AstroTurf on the outside before you dip into the gravel. And now we begin the run up to the Ascara chicane under the bank bridge of the Monza Oval. Hard on the brakes on the orange marker on the right hand side. Again, you can take a lot of inside curve here, but be very careful not to upset the car, flicking it back and forwards from the right to the left. And again, be very careful of track limits. Pedro Marquez there right on the limit, I believe, as he comes now down towards the Curva Parabolica. Again, a very long corner that you want to maximise as much as you can. Cambered on the inside, flick it down, try and suck the car into the cambered zone. We see Pedro Marquez here wrestling the car a little bit of understeer on turning. Maybe the Pirelli's not quite up to temperature yet, as he now runs towards the line for the first reference lap of the evening, a 1:48.7. But we know that can be beaten, as we saw in practice. Nico Kumpu there straight away up to the top with a 1:48.587, and these cars are only going to get faster as these tyres come in, Callum.
Yeah, we saw, I remember watching from the qualifying last week that it took about 5 laps for tyres to come in, but that was obviously a very slightly warm Imola. This seems like a fairly cold Monza, although it's 27, even though it looks quite overcast because it's quite late at night. But yeah, so it seems like the faster laps are set in the last sort of 5 minutes of qualifying, so I imagine these are going to get beaten quite quickly by the quicker guys such as Jimenez, who goes 4th, I believe, 3/10 off there.
Yeah, certainly a very good lap by Jose Jimenez, a driver that is always near the top of the field, and Christopher Straper and himself went toe-to-toe at Imola. And tonight we have a whopping 28 drivers here at Monza tonight. 34 have qualified into Split 1, which was drawn a couple of weeks ago. We've got some very regular names looking up and down the board, as I'm sure you'll know. Christopher Straper, Asia Masters champion. RPMS regulars Richard Phillips and Matt Stevens. We have Vinci Rachenov, British Masters champion. Tom Shipston, silver champion from the British Masters, and many other RCI names that you will be seeing up and down the grid. And Tim Ireland, has been very generous with the point split in this championship, meaning the top 30 will score some kind of points. So as long as you finish tonight, you're looking to score some points, and it's always crucial to get those points in as early as you can in a championship, just to kind of relieve the pressure on yourself as you get towards the end of it.
Yeah, points early on in the championship often help. I mean, I've seen it in real life where you get that big lead and it means that you can sort of have people slowly eat away at you. It means that if you have a bad race one week, it doesn't really feel as bad. You know, it's definitely a preferred position to be in. I mean, Verstappen and obviously Jimenez being at the top two last week, they'll often be wanting to sort of aim to be close up to there again this week. I mean, they seem a little bit off at the minute with Verstappen in P10. It's 7 tenths off for both of them, but again, there's still the quick laps to come in the next sort of 3 minutes or so.
Yep, speaking of quick laps there, Jose Jimenez looking very good on his Delta and fires himself to the top of the board with a 1:48.147. Still not quite into the 1:47s, although we're not all too far off it. And as you said, Callum, it's great to get, you know, those early banker rounds in a championship. You can almost, I wouldn't say switch off towards the end of the season, but you can certainly afford to, you know, take a few more risks, you know, maybe play it a little bit more easy, try and avoid, you know, as much of the carnage as you can. And I'm sure the question on everybody's minds tonight is Monza turn 1. How will it go down? And in about 10 minutes or so, we are about to find out, hopefully. And so Tom Shipston for the Ground Zero Racing, number 60, very wide at Parabolica there, I believe, is invalid on this lap this time by, although looked like a very big improvement to be had. A 1:49.152 certainly would have posted him up the board a little bit more. And this man here, Christopher Straper, a man that we're used to seeing towards the front, a flash of the lights for the broadcast, very confident indeed. A 1:48.122. He knew that was coming, Callum.
He knew that was quick. That's a very, very, very close lap between those two again. It's every week now, it's going to be those two at the top, between sort of fighting it out for those top 2 times, and that is, there's nothing in that. It's literally a blink of an eye in between those 2 times. I want to go back to your point about turn 1 there. Just as we see Eraser coming around to finish a lap here, I wonder whether this is going to put him. I don't know the deltas, only you do.
Looking fairly good.
I'm predicting chaos at turn 1. I'm predicting some chaos. I know our previous race at Monza was pretty clean. I just think that's boding for more chaos this week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Friday's proceedings, if you didn't catch it here on RCI TV, was the turn of the GT3 Split 1 boys to try and navigate through turn 1, and they managed it successfully. Much to myself and Jesse Lee's surprise, we were expecting to see utter carnage as, you know, 25 plus cars rumbled towards the turn 1 braking zone, and they somehow managed to find it out. You know, all the chaos erupted around like Lesmo and Ascari as Matthew Kingston-Lee now improves himself a 1:48.735. Again, another RCI regular that we do see here Monday nights in what I can only say is the kind of big yellow taxi livery. I'm still sticking by that, and you know, it just looks like a New York cab every time I see Matthew Kingston-Lee.
I'm going to agree with that. I mean, I obviously come from the UK, so to me that's a banana car from growing up, obviously, whenever you see a yellow car. But yeah, it's a very interesting livery choice. I mean, obviously the option for the custom liveries is great within RCI. It's a fantastic sort of thing that we run here, and I really like seeing some of the liveries, especially watching the Ginetta Cup from last season. There were some spooky liveries, some very, very spooky. Not so much this season with the Lambos, but definitely with the Ginettas last year. There was some spooky pigeons around. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing.
Yeah, Ted Edwards with his pigeon livery Ginetta was great to see. As Jordan Daly takes the rallycross line through Ascari, using all of the AstroTurf curb and a little bit more into the gravel. So just over 5 minutes for Jordan Daly to see if he can improve his time. Currently residing down in P22, a driver that we're, you know, used to seeing at least in the top 10. I mean, looking at his delta that time by, it would have been a very, very solid lap indeed had it not been for the cut at the exit of Ascari, and across the line would have been a 1:48.720. A definite big improvement for him. Would have put him roughly around just outside the top 10. I mean, Daly is one of those drivers that you can kind of, you know, have an average qualifying session, you kind of blink in the race, and then before you know it, Daly's, you know, gained 5 positions on where he was.
It's that really key race phase of the start as we see another car going wide to Ascari of Tom Shipston, I believe. But yeah, it's that phase at the start really where you can gain massively in the first few sort of 4 or 5 corners, especially with these cars with no tyre warmers whatsoever. So cold tyres, it's a massive opportunity for some of these guys, but it's also a big risk, especially at Monza.
Yeah, we know how dangerous Monza can be, as we keep saying. Turn 1, turn 2, or should we say the second chicane, if you count the Curva Grande as a bend, can be very big pinch points indeed, especially drivers looking to make up early positions. And this man here, Daniel Crinzen, for the RPMS SimSport team. Regulars at RCI, we see him on all of our endurance races. We see Richard Phillips in 24th, Matt Stevens in 25th, and Daniel Crinzen down in 27th. Although looking at his deltas from the beginning of this lap, it's looking to be a slight improvement for Daniel Crinzen. Hemorrhages a lot of time through Parabolica, very poor run, and he just bleeds it away to the line, but does jump himself up to P23, the fastest of the RPMS SimSport boys at the moment.
Just looking back up to my screen here, the gap at the top is now 0.007 of a second between Jimenez and Verstappen. It's becoming very close. It's starting to get into those last sort of 2, maybe 3 laps if you're lucky of qualifying, depending on where you are on the track right now. To get those laps in, obviously track at optimum, temperatures have settled, your pressures have settled now. Now it's just about driving and not making any mistakes. As commentators curse Jimenez runs wide, I believe that should be an invalid depending on how the track limits are. I don't know.
It is indeed.
Second Lesmo, unfortunately, unvalidated. So he'll start to cool things down again, maybe drop it down in engine mode, just to sort of get ready for another run. He's got maybe 2 more if he gets to the line quick enough.
Yeah, he's still got a few more stabs at the lap yet, I would say, depending how much life and how much fuel is left in that Lamborghini as well. But we did see Christoph Verstappen did take the provisional pole early on. Jimenez has taken that back since by, as Callum said, less than 0.007 of a second. I mean, if you and somebody else turned up at a venue at, at 0.007 seconds apart, you'd pretty much be turning up at the same time. And Jose Jimenez now begins another run towards the line, maximising as much of the track as he can out of Parabolica to give himself the longest run as such to the line to try and see if he can do any better. He, of course, wants to build up a little bit more of a gap than 0.007 to Christoph Verstappen. And even Rachinov is only 0.122 down the road on his best lap as we now ride aboard. Flicks it right, flicks it left, uses all of that exit curve and a little bit more of the green stuff. A little bump there as the curve ends, and now begins his run through the Curva Grande. Very easy corner to kind of, gain a bit of time on in the slipstream to get a poor run out of turn 1. You're certainly going to eat your opponent up as we run down to the second chicane, the Variante della Roggia. Again, left and right, be very careful of the anti-cups. A little kiss there for Jimenez as he now begins his run towards Lesmo 1. Wants to tip it in, see him wrestling the wheel, working it slightly there, trying to use all of the track and no more, doesn't want to invalidate it at all as we now tip to the second Lesmo in nice and close to the curve on the inside, using all of the AstroTurf on the outside, and he now begins another run up to the Variante Ascari as we head under the tunnel of the old Monza banking where of course the cars used to run in the 50s and 60s. Now up towards the Ascari, hard on the brakes, want to scrub off a lot of speed before you tip it in. They want to be braking and turning in. You're just going to push the car wide over all of the anti-cut curve on the inside of far too much. Keeps it out of the wall though, Callum, and this does mean he can have another stab at it.
He has got just enough time to have another stab at it, as has Verstappen on one flying lap now, coming down into turn 1, hitting the braking point. The question is now is how hard do you go at it if you're Verstappen? You've got to go all out for this lap, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much already got a front row in the bag unless Rachinov can find that all-important small margin of time to kind of, progress himself up onto the front row of the grid. Now, as we watch Verstappen, we look at Rachinov and being told in my ear has started his final lap just now. So Rachinov does, of course, have another stab at it, as well as Verstappen, as well as Jimenez. So we have 3 drivers here, less than, 0.15 of a second within each other. I think this could be anyone's qualifying to play for. Looking at the deltas on your top 2, they're looking very good at the moment.
It's very close. I mean, the incredible stat about this series that I find is that you've got 23 drivers that are within a second of each other around a 1 minute 50 lap. As we see Rachanov coming in through Parabolica, is he going to be able to improve from 1/10 down? I don't know, as he comes up to the line. It's quite a short run up to the line here, keeping it tight as possible. No, he's pitting it. He's pitted in.
Pitted in and brought the cone in with him. So Rachanov does secure himself as P3. This man here, Christopher Straper, can he take a pole away from Jose Jimenez? Looking at the Delta as he's running down towards the Parabolica, it's not looking particularly good unless he's got a very good run through Parabolica in the bag, tips it in. Delta does improve by a lot, however, does bleed time on the exit as he gets a little wiggle in the corner, and the Straper comes in, so locks himself into P2. This man here, Jose Jimenez, has secured the pole from what we can see up here in the booth. However, he is on another flyer of a lap this time. Keeps it a lot cleaner through Ascari than he did last time. No inside curb to launch the car off into the gravel. He's going to be very mindful of that going into the race. He's going to be a little bit scared, I think, of that inside curb as he runs now through Parabolica. This is all for honours, just setting to improve the time if he can. Begins his run towards the line. Does improve just about 148.062 to secure himself on the front row of the grid, Callum. And like you say, 23 drivers, less than a second nearly between them all. This is going to be a great one.
That is incredible. I mean, looking at some of the gaps on my timing screen now, from 6th all the way down to 9th, you've got less than 600ths of a second separating 4 drivers. I mean, the mid-pack battle is going to be very, very good, especially when we sort of, as we see with these Monday night races and these equal cars, that they sort of start to break out into groups of sort of 2 or 4 or 5, depending on how well they break away at the start. Obviously, Jimenez and Verstappen making that good start last week, and breaking away in sort of a leading 2, and with everyone else trying to chase them down as we see the qualifying standings flash up on the screen. Again, another week where not one person set 2 purple sectors, and in fact, Jimenez managing to go on pole without setting a single purple sector. Shows you how close it is between everybody here at Monza.
Yeah, it does prove how close it is indeed. And look at your sector 3s on Jimenez and Verstappen. They ran the exact same sector time between the two of them. And, you know, you just can't write this as we browse down towards the back end of the field. RPMS probably looking to improve on that. Richard Phillips, Matt Stevens down at the back end of the grid. Daniel Crimson, top of the board for them. John Aracer, Chris Downing looking very out of place down in P21. Joe Dorber, again, another name that I'm expecting to see higher. Andy Boardman, again, a lot of drivers down the back end to improve, and it's going to have an all-important effect on those championship results.
Yeah, but as we said, you can see that there's more of an opportunity, especially having one bad race. You know, you want to try and get as far up the field as possible, and Monza is a great opportunity to do that, especially with the long straights. Long straights, heavy braking zones, very, very easy to allow for some form of overtakes, especially in a pack of people.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of slipstreaming going on, and we are going to take a look now at our championship standings from round 1 of Imola for the Super Trofeo Cup as Ryan Gill prepares to cue them. They're coming soon, I'm being told. Production value at its all-time high here at RCI TV. We are having technical difficulties, I'm being told. So while Ryan sorts that out, I'm going to tell you a little bit about tonight's race. He says, let me get back to you. So if we see some championship standings flash up, then I shall be first to read them. However, tonight we do have a mandatory pit stop. A little bit of a change to tonight's race. It's not usually the 1 hour slot that we're used to seeing here at RCI TV. It is, of course, a 50-minute sprint, 50-minute sprint, and a ban. Yes, a ban on pit lane refueling, meaning drivers will have to make sure they obviously put enough in the tank to begin with or manage their fuel usage over the course of the race. And of course, anyone forced to come in will be at a significant disadvantage over the field. So let's hope for a clean start as always at RCI. I'm seeing Stinger transitions flashing. I'm still not seeing any championship results. So a small calendar breakdown for the Super Trofeo Cup. Finds herself round 3, flying stateside for Indianapolis before crossing back across the Atlantic for Brands Hatch of round 4, and then finally rounding up on Christopher Straper's home turf in Belgium at Spa. So yeah, all to play for here. Indianapolis is going to be another interesting circuit, a lot of twisties, but then a lot of straights as well, as we now have championship results. So Christopher Straper is your provisional championship leader with 72 points. Jose Jimenez comes in second with 58. Not far behind, Adam Romaniuk with 53. Carlos Frau with 48. Vency Rashidov with 44, Benjamin Schumann with 40, Andy Boardman in the 69 car with 37 points, Ethan Scotty with 34, Chris Downing with 31, and Jordan Daly rounds out your top 10 with 28 points.
And obviously, as we've said, a bit of a different championship standings and the top 30 drivers getting points here. So it's a very, very good chance to jump ahead massively with those big points being offered for first place if you want to run through the next set of people.
Yeah, exactly. So, Callum, Roscam brings in P11 with 25. Les Stevenson, who I believe might be in the pub watching this tonight, with 23 points. Carlos Circuit de Catalunya is how I've been asked to say his name by Carlos in chat, by means of pronouncing his name, because I really struggled last week, so we're going with that. 21 points for Carlos, 19 points for Ashley Holland, Matthias Tornberg with 17, Matthew Kingston-Lee with 15, Matt Stevens with 14, Bailey Collins with 13, Daniel Martinez with 12, and Tom Shipston with 11. So very small margin of points between, you know, P16 and P20. So even in the mid-pack, it is all to play for. As we round on to one of our final pages now, I believe Richard Phillips on 10, Nico Kumpu on 9, Luke Crofts on 8, Marco Fucuscio on 7, and everybody below Marco is yet to score.
Yeah, I mean, as we round up with more people, actually, we've got John Erasia on 0 points, Tom Roberts, Pablo Lopez Garcia, Giorgio Migazzi, and Daniel Crinson, all yet to score, assuming they are either sign-outs from the first round, or because I believe we only had 28 to 30 drivers taking that first round.
It was about 28 from memory. We have a few drivers who have in real life commitments. Tom Roberts, I believe, was at Autosport, who you briefly met at the NEC.
Yeah, Autosport is a great event. Nice to meet Tom. Very, very strange meeting RCI members in real life, sort of having to walk up and go, "Are you Tom?" Especially as we seem to have about 40 Toms on staff.
We do have a few Toms on our staff roster.
We also have a Ted called Tom, I'm being told in my ears, from Ryan Gill Broadcasting. So,
just to make it even more confusing.
Just to make it really easy for me as a newcomer, as we see the cars go around the formation lap, starting to probably get some heat into their tyres, stuff like that. But yeah, it was a very, very nice event. Obviously there with the university, showing off the racing that we do as well. Nice to meet a lot of the general public was there for one of for the Saturday. But yeah, some very, very, very nice cars. Obviously on show at Autosport being one of the biggest motorsport shows in the UK. But as we see all of the cars now filtering down towards that second chicane and the Lesmos, it's a field of Lamborghinis, what can I say? Bright, colourful Lamborghinis. There's nothing better on a Monday.
Yeah, so great to see everybody getting really creative, as we said earlier, with their custom liveries, in-game liveries, as Jordan Daly there checks out quite hard, causing a few ghosting issues between everybody. So a little breakdown of the Super Trofeo car. For those of you who don't know, a 5.2 litre V10 powers these cars roughly up to 611 brake horsepower with 570 Newton meters of torque, paired with a sequential 6-speed extract gearbox. Doesn't, of course, make this car a slouch by any means. Very close to, you know, almost a GT3 kind of entry spec car. It's the closest you can kind of get without obviously getting into the GT3s. This one makes series of the Lamborghini Super Trofeos. Of course, the immense aero on this car as well, based, I'm being told, very similarly off the new Evo 2 GT3 car that is coming, of course, next year in the SRO series in real life. And there is a rumour circulating that it may also be coming to ACC to give the field a little refresh and a little bit of an update. Of course, to battle alongside the Evo 2 Audi and, of course, the 992 Porsche that is also rumoured to join the roster. And I'm being told in my ear, of course, the new Ferrari, the 296, being released. Of course, next year as well. A few teams already showcasing liveries on, social medias and Twitters. So great to see. But back to tonight's action, and I think it's going to be too close to call, Callum, between the top runners.
Oh, is this where you do the thing and ask me who I think is going to win this round? Oh,
that's exactly what we're about to do. That's exactly it.
Sorry,
you know how it goes.
I've been dreading it. I'm going to have to go out there, and I think Jimenez. I just think that qualifying run, being able to set 2 times so close to each other, as you say, it's a race of consistency as they slowly start to come around Parabolica, so I'm going to round off and say Jimenez. What about you, John?
Yeah, solid choice on Jimenez, but my money is on Verstappen. Just something about that man. Every time I watch him race, he just pulls it out of nowhere. So great to see the Belgian driver on the front row of the grid. We see, of course, a teammate XBD Emerald racing car of Carlos Frau just to the right-hand side of the picture in the green behind Verstappen. Let's hope for a clean turn 1 as everybody double file now towards the starting gantry. 15 minutes on the clock. The green flag waves and a great start by Jimenez and Verstappen from the outside row of the grid. Verstappen looked like he just reacted that little bit sooner than Jimenez did. He's managed to get a nose ahead already down into turn 1, the typical pinch point here at Monza. Jimenez brakes very late indeed, manages to just about make the corner over the anti-car, cars sideways. Verstappen is off. Racionov's involved, I believe. Carlos Frau, one of the big gainers there. Nico Kumpu, I think, possibly in the 256 Lamborghini. Actually, Holland there caught up maybe in that as well. And the field is going to be very split. Said on Friday we had no dramas at all in turn 1, but Christoph Verstappen now finds himself with a lot of legwork to do as the live timing now starts to sync and shuffle him up the grid. P8 is where Verstappen has found himself to, and we now flick back to a race replay. Looking from the helicam, it's going to be kind of easy to tell maybe what happened. It looked like Jimenez was caught napping on the green. Verstappen there definitely got a nose ahead. Racionov looks very far ahead from the other XPD car of Carlos Frau. We got Marquez, I believe, in the background in the blue and grey car as we shuffle towards turn 1. Jimenez there definitely at the disadvantage, brakes a lot later than Verstappen, maybe underestimates it, and there's contact on Racionov that sent him round into Verstappen.
He's clipping that curb on the inside. It's just unsettled the car. These Lambos seem quite good over the curbs, especially with Imola, but for some reason it seems like that just unsettled the car on the entry, maybe carrying a little bit too much speed, locking a wheel, and it's just sent him straight around into Verstappen. I don't think anything he could do there, really.
Yeah, I think Verstappen there was a bit of an innocent party. It looked like one of the yellow Lamborghinis just kind of outbroke itself. Not sure who that was entirely. But yeah, just outbroke himself and just happened to catch Verstappen on the inside of the curb there as we now round through lap 1. Jimenez leads from Adam Romaniuk, Marquez in 3rd, Schumann in 4th. That was the big gainer who I was trying to work out who it was. Nico Kumpu with the fastest lap. Racionov finds himself down in P6. Carlos Frau 7th. Our very own RCI Carlos in P8. Verstappen, of course, in P9. And Ashley Holland rounds out your top 10. It's contact now with Jordan Daly, and everybody bunches up again behind in turn 1. These are the scenes you do not want to see. Possibly Chris Downing maybe on that one in the RPMS Volpes Simsport. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe you're right there on Chris Downing there. I think that's going to be a penalty for a little bit of a punt, I'd imagine. I think the stewards are going to be quite busy over these next sort of 2 or 3 laps sorting out all of that chaos from the start. But and contact,
more chaos.
It's going bad for worse today.
How Daly escaped through the middle of the chicane there without contacting anyone.
Clipped any more drivers going through that as we see Jimenez still trying to bring that gap out. It's currently about 1.7 seconds. As I said, stewards are going to be very, very, very busy today.
Yeah, the 197, Jordan Daly, looks like he's stopped in the middle of that chicane, maybe recomposing his thoughts, debating what to do. Of course, the top 30 will score points, so even if he continues, he's still more than likely going to get a few in the bag. But stewards tonight probably going to be very busy from those opening 2 laps. We, of course, have in the box tonight, we have Andreas, Connor, Daniel, Jake Boswell, and Tom Watts, one of our many Toms we have here at RCI. But this man here, Jose Jimenez, has managed to kind of streak away from all the chaos. Although he missed the turn 1 chicane, managed to kind of outbrake himself a little bit, managed to escape it all, and everybody now just kind of bunching up behind. We've got Ashley Holland following Tom Shipston. Shipston way up there in the Ground Zero Racing Lamborghinis. We ride on board with the splitter cam of Ashley Holland. We're going to see what kind of effect the Lambos give on slipstream, Callum.
Yeah, it didn't seem too great at Imola. We didn't see a lot of people slip through in qualifying, although as he gets prepared to get down the brakes, he's going to have a look down the inside, but no, decides better of it. He's going to follow the car through, staying as close as possible underneath that rear splitter, take that second part of the turn 1 chicane as wide as possible and try and get a run down through Curva Grande, but doesn't seem like he's had the best exit. Also going to be checking in his mirrors to see if anyone's coming from behind as well.
Yeah, certainly something you want to be watching at Monza, not only the guy ahead, but you also want to be watching that car behind, because although you've also got a slipstream off the car ahead, he's going to have a slipstream off you. And the last thing you want is to be so focused on the car ahead that before you know it, the car behind you has sailed past, as Lopez Garcia in the background there comes under fire from Andy Boardman. Boardman threw up the inside into Lesmo 1. Slightly bad run through the second chicane meant Boardman was able to get alongside up to Lesmo 2. And RCI Carlos, I'm not going to say it, Ryan Gill. Stop making me say this man's name. Circuit de Catalunya, I'm going with. Ryan Gill is laughing in my ears, and I hate it so much. But now Carlos is finding the back of another Carlos Frau, ahead in the XPD Emerald Racing. Sparks fly as they ride over the inside curb. But we got this little train forming now, Callum. We saw this a lot in the Ginettas. We saw good bunches of 8-9 cars starting to form, but we've got a bit of a snake of Lamborghinis now coming towards the Parabolica.
Yeah, that slipstream event is just going to be even more powerful now. As they round through the Parabolica, we'll see if anyone can make a move onto the brakes into turn 1. I don't think the straight is going to be close enough to Carlos. I'm not going to even try and pronounce his second name either, because I messed up as well, to have a move. So Carlos is free to sort of have his, as I have Ryan shouting in my ear how to pronounce the name in Spanish. Unfortunately, didn't take that at GCSE. He's not quite close enough to have a look down on the turn 1 through the brakes. I don't think anyone was making a move down there. I don't see anyone jumping about, although this seems like it's going to be close going into turn 1 with the car slow down the straight of Matt Stevens, I believe. No, nothing doing, no big sends today. As I say, that was a very, very, very close bit of avoiding action there between Phillips and I believe Quinton there. Just about managing to pull out, and that would have been teammates as well.
Yeah, that would have been certainly a bit of friendly fire on the RPMS SimSport boys. Something that you really don't want happening in your race. As we see now, this queue forming. Marquez is the cork in the bottle. And look behind Benjamin Schumann and Nico Kumpu, 2 teammates. They're, of course, going to be maybe thinking twice about passing each other and probably thinking maybe we should be working together here. Maybe we can see some NASCAR bump drafting, if anybody's listening. I'd really love to see a little bit of bump drafting. I think we did see it briefly at Imola between a couple of cars, but I can't think who it was. A couple of drivers here look like they're getting caught out by the additional speed they're being given in this train. We have Rachinov just behind Nico Kumpu, Carlos Frau followed by another Carlos behind him, and Christoph the Straper, the man who has lost the most on the opening lap. All eyes on him to try and come back, but Rachinov definitely looking like he's going for a move into the Parabolica. Sorry to cut in there, Callum, but tried to get alongside Nico Kumpu and maybe thought, now is not the time. This looks a bit risky. Did come from quite a way back. He's kind of, it's the only problem when you have a slipstream from the guy ahead. The guy behind also doesn't get much of a draft off you, and you just kind of sit in this stalemate until one of you hits the brakes, and then it all kicks off.
It's a struggle. Through Parabolica there, I thought he was going to try maybe feign to move up the inside to sort of throw the car in front of Nico Kumpu off his line, maybe give him a bad exit down the main straight. That's sort of where you have to make your moves in these big long trains of cars, with, as you say, with that slipstream effect sort of getting negated when you get sort of the middle of that train.
And having a few problems with my mute button tonight. Sorry, I keep hitting it and it doesn't register the push on that one. But yeah, definitely so. You know, you don't get as much of a wake as you think you would from the car ahead. Obviously, the car behind is then getting the same kind of pull that you're getting. So you do just kind of sit in this kind of stalemate train, I would say, until one of you gets close enough. And close enough, Marquez looks like he's going to be under fire from Schumann any day now. Looking very close to the back of that blue and grey Lamborghini, and a big moment there behind Verstappen, just about avoids him. I think that was Carlos Circuit de Catalunya. I'm not even going to try and say his surname properly. I'm going with this for the rest of the broadcast. But big moment from Carlos there, I think it was. Christopher Straper managed to avoid him, but a lot of damage to the front end of that Lambo.
Rest in peace to the Circuit of Catalunya, and we can all agree indeed that we failed Spanish. I didn't even bother taking it, hence why I can't pronounce his name, but now it looks like he's going to be retiring. I'd imagine, I don't think that will be fixable damage. As we see a move down the inside there, or is that a defensive move there, away by Nico Kumpu on Rachanov. It looks like they're trying to offset each other from their lines. Means he's got a bad run there. I think Rachanov might have a chance going into this turn one chicane.
Yeah, Rachanov looking very racy indeed, and you see the defensive line there coming out from Nico Kumpu straight away to the inside. So if Rachanov wants to make this work, he's going to have to go the long way round. The outside turns to the inside for the second part of the chicane, and very well stuck by both drivers. Very clean driving from Rachanov and Nico Kumpu, still side by side as they come around the Curva Grande, but I think Rachanov just about has the legs to hold on, and of course being the outside of the Curva Grande will of course turn to the inside and look behind Carlos Fraun, the XPD Emerald Racing, and Nico Kumpu now switches to the inside. Can they stop? They bump doors. Kumpu spins. Rachanov over the anti-cut, and another one for the stewards to look at as Kumpu now slides down the table, Gallum.
I don't believe Kumpu's got anything there to complain about. I think that's just gone in way too deep there. He's frustrated. He's lost the position, and he knows that he wants to get back to sort of getting towards forward in that train. Because once you start losing position in a train of cars, it sort of carries on. The momentum of the cars behind sort of carries them past you. Sometimes you find. And I don't think he's got much to complain about there. I think he's massively misjudged that. Fortunately for Rachanov, he's managed to escape without seemingly any damage and no time loss.
Yeah, I think he got very lucky there. A few doors banged, but nothing too major. Not like we saw Carlos nose first into the wall out of Lesmo 2. Very unfortunate there. Although Nico Kumpu is going to be very frustrated with himself, as you say. He did try and make a comeback on it. Fair play for trying it. But unfortunately, it just did not work this time. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And speaking of winning, Christoph Verstraper has now come back up to P7. And Ryan Gill, in my ear, says, cue the Jaws music, as Verstappen now hunts down the next car on his list. Carlos Fraun in P6, the number 17 XPD Emerald Racing car we see just ahead there in the green colours, matching the green wall of Monza on the right hand side. Verstappen hard on the brakes for turn one. It's very kind of deceiving turn one. You think you made a really big gain on the car ahead before you both begin accelerating out, and I was going to say normally that gap gets a lot bigger. However, it looks like Verstappen has made a good gain on the brakes on the back of Carlos Fraun's car, so all to play for this lap. I think Carlos is going to find himself under fire from a fired up Belgium driver soon.
Yeah, Verstappen obviously having a bad start. That turn one is really not being his fault, but he has been pushing really hard. I've seen him in the back of camera shots pushing, especially on the exit for Scari. But obviously got to keep in mind about the track limit penalties of the 3 free strikes, and then the fourth one being that penalty there. As he again wide through Lesmo 1, trying to get a good run through Lesmo 2. Car ahead runs wide on the apron. He's going to get in here, I think, running up to Scari.
Yeah, bad run through Lesmo 2 indeed, Callum, and it does allow Verstappen alongside Carlos Fraun, and the run that Christoph has on him is going to allow him to pull clear way before the braking zone of Ascari. And I think Carlos has kind of said, you know what, it's yours, you have it, I will follow you through, and we'll see what we can maybe do to work together to catch the back of the next train ahead, as Rachanov now looks very racy on Benjamin Schumann, I believe, in the other kind of lion bar skin car. Rachanov to the outside outside heading down to Parabolica. Not where you particularly want to be. You kind of want to break a little bit early, try and tuck it in and do the old switcheroo coming onto the start finish straight. Rachinov is now definitely within slipstream range, so we're going to have a true picture here as now Marquez also comes under fire from, I believe, Adam Romaniuk, a driver who finished on the bottom step of the podium, looking to improve that on the Imola race. Side by side down into turn one. Again, of course, the outside would become the inside. Romaniuk alongside just about, and we see in the background as well Schumann on a nearly textbook move similar to the car ahead, and Schumann manages to keep his defense. Adam Romaniuk manages to make turn 1 and 2 work. Marquez slips down, Romaniuk up, and Schumann stays where he is with Rachinov.
Yeah, very close, running 2x2 through turn 1, through the chicane. I was impressed there as we run down into the second chicane here. Are we going to see a move down the outside? Very hard to make a move through there, and they all bunch up due to that. So they now got 4 cars involved in this one battle. It sort of brought their Schumann and Rachinov into play, and as I'm told through my ear, here comes Verstappen trying to make it 5 involved in this battle now.
Yeah, looking at the back, cue the Jaws theme music. As Ryan Gill said, he is on the hunt for some prey tonight, is Christoph. He wants to get those positions back, and now fixated on his horizon, 4 Lamborghini. So if he manages to do all of these guys, he will take himself up to P2. Jose Jimenez has broken away from this pack, as you see on the circuit map on the right-hand side. The 1-2-2 streaking way ahead now. He's almost halfway down to Parabolica, while these guys are just coming out of the Escara chicane, although the slipstream is back on for Pedro Marquez. Romaniuk goes to the left-hand side, possibly not where you want to be heading into Parabolica. You can't even see Marquez's car. He's that close to the back of Romaniuk, and he pulls out Adam Romaniuk around the outside. Needs to be very careful now. He doesn't lose too much momentum, otherwise Benjamin Schumann behind is going to tow himself and Rachinov past the Polish driver down into turn 1, although Romaniuk does mount a good charge through Parabolica. And now tucking in the slipstream of Pedro Marquez, we're going to see a kind of 1-for-1 move like we saw last time by Romaniuk, again to the outside, not giving Marquez any room until the last minute when he darts back over. Now we see Rachinov in the background trying to mount an attack on Schumann. There's contact. Romaniuk goes through on the inside. Rachinov and Schumann side by side. Again, it's going to be one for the stewards, Callum. I'd really hate to be in their shoes tonight.
It's going to be an interesting night for those guys as we see a drive-through penalty for Nico Kumpu. I assume that's for the contact. I believe, as I'm seeing in one of the chats here, as it's 4 cars now basically separated by absolutely nothing coming into the second chicane. And Romaniuk, Rachinov, I believe, coming out with that one. I can't tell between the car colours, even though they're blue and white. I'm not used to which skin is which yet, as Verstappen is definitely now in this fight, trying to attack Schumann here, going through the second Lesmo.
Yeah, Verstappen in there like swimwear, shall we say. He is firmly on the back of this pack now. Now they've been squabbling amongst each other. It's allowed Christoph just to tow cleanly up to the back of Schumann. Obviously, Schumann with a little bit of a rub into the first chicane has set him on the back foot from his rivals ahead, Rachinov and Romaniuk. Rachinov looks to the inside on Romaniuk to try and get him into the Escara chicane. We see another drive-through coming through for Daniel Crimson in the 909. We've got few stewards reports kind of filtering through slowly but surely from Jake Boswell tonight. He's our chief steward reporter, so it's up to him to write down what happened to who, on what corner, at what lap, and what decision was the outcome. So when we start building a few of those up in the stewards chat, we will start reading them off, and you'll soon see why. The Nico Kumpu 256 has a penalty, and Daniel Crimson the 909 has a drive-through penalty as well. And of course, with no pit stops tonight, Callum, any trip down pit lane is just going to cost you a huge amount of time.
A massive amount of time. It's painful being sat there on the pit limit as we see Verstappen potentially shaping for a move down the inside, decides better of it. It's going to just again try and get that run through the second part of the corner. I believe they're 2x2 in front though, if we can switch to a view of that. There's barriers flying everywhere. I don't know what they've managed to do to get that, but Romaniuk, I believe, has caused a mistake as he's dropped down a couple of positions there, which promotes believe Rachinov is now going to be fighting, trying to sort of break away as they do 2x2, but it's all playing side by side. It's all fair game though, they're doing it to each other, so it don't really think the stewards will have much to look at on that, but Romaniuk has lost out massively, as we've seen now, sort of. And it's side by side to the second Lesmo as well. Verstappen managing to make another move, I believe, on Ben Schumann. as he holds it around the outside, running down, this is going to be a very, very, very tricky Ascari.
Yeah, these are absolutely crazy scenes we're seeing here, Callum. After round one of Imola being so spaced out, I never expected to see these guys being so close. And now Carlos Frau has invited himself to the party. The Straper on the inside of the Ascari, a little bit of rubbing again, forcing Schumann over the curb. And of course, when we see drivers make one mistake, they're pounced on by 2, 3, 4 drivers at a time. And all the meanwhile, is that Tom Shipston? It is, in the number 60. Tom Shipston, who was down in like P10, I think, at the start, has managed to find his way back up into the race, and Adam Romaniuk is just going backwards now, Callum.
Yeah, it's like negative effects of getting overtaken by a couple of drivers, and then it really just hits you hard, and you feel like you're getting past left, right and centre, which he is now. I think it's going to be Shipston is going to take that position, I imagine, going into turn one, as he has that preferred inside line, but we have seen a couple of cars try and hold it around the outside. Let's see what Romaniuk tries to do.
Yeah, Romaniuk to the outside, Tom Shipston up the inside, and Shipston thinks, maybe I'm not going to go for this one. I'm going to size up the move. We've got another 31 minutes. And Schumann over the curb, I believe. Not sure what happened here. Let's watch from the helicam. Schumann on the brakes. Yeah, nearly into the back of Verstappen. I think he was. Verstappen had to kind of just shortcut the chicane and say, this ain't happening, I'm not making this corner. And Schumann followed him. But of course, Carlos Frau now on the back foot as he took the chicane the proper line.
Again, don't think Verstappen was really at fault for another turn one incident. I imagine that's the most that's going to be is a track cut warning for Schumann there. I don't think Verstappen will get one, hopefully. I hope, but at least hope not, because it definitely wasn't his fault, sort of getting pushed off the circuit at the first chicane. It seems to have settled down a little bit now. The gap's sort of starting to open up as the contact sort of allows the cars to sort of spread out. Not seeing this massive group of cars all covered 2 by 2 going into any corners anytime soon.
Yeah, the track map looks very close if you look at it on the right hand side, but in reality we do now have a little bit of space, and so it's good for myself and Callum to, you know, take a breather and kind of, you know, relax a little bit, and we'll have a look at what's happening on RCI this week. We find ourselves again with some quite steady pacing. Tuesday with an empty slot. We see Wednesday with Rookies Championship Season 3 heading to round 2 at Barcelona. Thursday again, a nice peaceful night, no racing there, and Friday then continues our GT Sprint Challenge Season 9 with round 2 heading to Brands Hatch for a tight-knit grid of GT3 competitors. Jonas Alvalainen took a victory over Dylan Tan and Joshua Allen from a very close for 65-minute race, which is the curveball in the GT3 Sprint Series this season. Typically a 1-hour sprint race, although we're extending it to 1 hour and 5 minutes, which just about pushes a lot of the cars outside the kind of no-stop window. So everybody's kind of splitting down their fuel. Straight down the middle, we saw kind of a 50-50 run last time out at Monza, and we will probably see a similar pattern for the rest of the year as Venturation looks towards the inside of Marquez, but no move to be had. Romaniuk now finds himself under fire from Carlos Frau, and all the meanwhile these two are fighting. Andy Boardman brings Tom Shipston into the fight, so we can have another 4-way duel, and looking very close through the Lesmo corners indeed. And something I've been asked to promote quite heavily is RCI goes iRacing this year in 2023, as we see very close action from Andy Boardman on the back of Carlos Frau, just to break away from the iRacing point. All is avoided. Everybody comes out of Lesmo 2 safely, but looked very close indeed, as Romaniuk now finds himself under fire from Carlos Frau, and in the mirrors Andy Boardman is looking to find a way past Boardman. No slouch at all, bad qualifying from him, but certainly sees his way climbing up the field now as they run down towards a parabolica. A few rallycross lines being taken, a few bits of speed being lost, but all is well. So something new for 2023 here at RCI with RCI Goes iRacing. For those of you interested in these events, we will have a road series open with a multi-class grid of GT4 and MX5 Cup cars, and the same format follows an endurance race at Okayama as well on the 11th of February, with the road series beginning on the 31st of January. Over in the Discord, for those of you that are new to iRacing, we do have some iRacing codes available for those wanting to dip their toe in another sim. We've got 3 months of a free trial for new accounts only, perfect to test if iRacing is the sim for you. And alternatively, we have a 12 months for $49.99 USD, again for new accounts only, ideal if you want to take part in all of our events over the next year here at RCI. And details on how to claim these can be found in our Discord server. A link is of course in the description below, and head on over to the iRacing channels for more information.
I think iRacing is going to be a great addition to RCI. I mean, it's obviously RCI growing with ACC. It's become a massive community, and I think iRacing is only going to strengthen that. It's nice to have another sim thrown in there that people can sort of have at. Really, it's another chance to drive some different cars. MX-5's very different to anything that's offered through ACC, as we see more mid to lower field battles between, I believe, M. Stevens and Megazi there are battling away. It says 7/10, but I believe they're a lot closer than that, so maybe Stevens having a bit of a bad run through the two Lesmos as they head down towards Ascari.
Yeah, certainly so. RPMS sandwich. Megazi finds himself in. He's got Stevens ahead and Richard Phillips behind. So the RPMS boys maybe working together a little bit. Maybe Stevens can hold up Megazi that little bit for Phillips. Phillips gets in on the action. A big mistake there, I think, from Megazi through the Ascari chicane. And this is going to allow Richard Phillips to tow up to the back of that black, yellow and red Lamborghini. The RPMS colours, of course, very distinct. The kind of turquoise, white and black with normally a coloured kind of accents thrown in there, just so we up here in the comms box can identify who is who, which of course does make our life a little bit easier. Of course, Richard Phillips with the colour purple. Matt Stevens, I believe, is kind of in a RPMS-esque sim sport car, not a full custom livery, and I believe Daniel Crimson has kind of like lime green accents across his car, so all very easy to make out as we now see Richard Phillips in the back pull out to the inside. Megazi kind of breaking diagonally across him. Megazi misses the chicane. Phillips, of course, takes it through the normal route. Matt Stevens ahead, I believe, completely missed his braking point and also shortcutted the chicane, so the fight that we thought we had has suddenly disappeared.
How dare they interrupt our iRacing show to cause and then have such a bad fight between them. I believe that really is Megazi getting distracted by Stevens going straight on in the chicane, or has he got some kind of problem because he's going straight on in a lot of these chicanes now? I think he was shaping to go straight on in that second chicane as well. It's hard to brake and have that distraction of someone going off in front of you, because a lot of these drivers will be judging and sort of feeling off the cars in front of them to sort of see where they can gain a bit of lap time. And if he hasn't noticed that he's out, if the car in front's missed his braking point, then it's quite easy to overshoot yourself. But I think that was a bit cheeky there, cutting him off and trying to still make the corner. I believe he'd been better off taking the escape road and conceding the position and maybe battling off down through the second chicane instead.
Yeah, certainly so. A little bit tricky. Like you say, Callum, when you kind of follow somebody, you almost drive to how they're driving, and it doesn't always work out for your particular setup or your particular driving method. Although the stewards have calmed down a little bit. I'm waiting for a massive wall of text to come through any minute, but we'll cover what we've already got. So we've had an incident on lap 2, turn 2, involving the 777 and the 96, was deemed a racing incident, minor contact. We then have an incident on lap 2, turn 5, involving the 909 and the 197. We have a drive-through for the 909 who moved under braking, causing a takeout. Lap 1, turn 4, involving the 777 and the 69, racing incident, minor contact. Incident lap 4, turn 3, involving the 20, the 34 and the 255, was deemed a racing incident, minor contact. And lap 1, turn 1, involving the 27, the 96 and the 777, deemed a racing incident. The 27 hits the back of the 96, who then hits the 777, so a kind of concertina effect. And that is all we have at the moment from our steward Jake Boswell. I'm going to say they are frantically scrabbling about in the booth, trying to analyse everything that's happened over the kind of last 25 minutes or so. Obviously additional camera angles, driver inputs, much more data than we have up here in the comms box other than a TV camera and a race replay, so it can't always be easy to describe kind of who has hit who and where and how. And as I finish talking, we have a few more coming through. Incident on lap 2, turn 6, involving the 27 and the 34. We have a warning for car 34. Late on the brakes and makes contact with the 27. Incident on lap 1, turn 1, involving the 182 and the 17. We have a warning for the 182, avoidable contact on the 17. We then have lap 2, turn 2, involving the 197, the 255 and the 53. A 15-second penalty for car 255 for a takeout, but position returned. So obviously positions being returned is something the stewards see favourable, although it can land you with a little less of a penalty than we saw last time at Imola. We saw a few cars not giving positions back and being hit with the drive-throughs, and that of course can be detrimental in a race that has no pit stops.
Yeah, that drive-through penalty again, the moment you have to pit for any form of damage or penalty is really going to cost you so much more time than that 15 seconds. So definitely worth, if possible, letting the cars go back through, as we see Megazi having another battle with Phillips. And I believe Scotty's trying to get in on the mix as well. Scotty, he's overdone it on the brakes and he has tapped Phillips, although Phillips seems to have kept it together and somehow, amazingly, not cut any of the corner.
Yeah, kudos to Phillips there for holding on to that one. Ethan Scott, I think, was caught out a little bit by the overspeed that the slipstream gave him. Wasn't quite expecting to have to brake that hard that early and find his way through. Phillips looks like he's given up the position on the Curva Grande back to Megazi. Ethan Scotty does find himself in the background in the bright green car. And yeah, I think it's just a fact of some of these drivers maybe just aren't used to running in a pack or in a slipstream, especially in these new cars that maybe not everybody has practiced as much as the other driver has.
Yeah, it's a consistency thing as well. Obviously, the more lap times you can put in the practice sessions, the better you are going to be at getting instantly into that consistency. But it's also a pressure thing as well. There's nothing like doing it in the actual race live on stream, with this being the only chance I get at it. Lucky there, very, very lucky to escape with what looks like minimal damage between both of them. As we see more cars heading down towards Parabolic. Is Kingston Lee going to set up a move? That's way too deep in there for the 555 car, and into the gravel. That's going to cost him at least a couple of positions. I imagine Chris Downing's there is going to get in on the run down into turn 1. That was a bit too much of a lunge there.
There's a big lunges coming forward, left, right and centre as the drivers get to the 20-minute remaining mark. Chris Downing now finds himself towards the outside of Matthew Kingston Lee. Chris Downing very late on the brakes, sails past and not even sure if he made the corner there at all on Matthew Kingston Lee. Looked like he was aiming for the speed humps, I would say, on the inside, and judging by the gap that he's pulled out suddenly in the first chicane, I would say possibly might have missed the first corner as Matthew Kingston Lee gives a flash of the lights, probably in kind of anger that Chris Downing has gained such a big time advantage, although it looks like Downing has done the honourable thing and maybe given up some of the time he gained, although not sure if he will turn the position or not as we head around the second chicane, and he does so. Chris Downing, very sportsmanlike behaviour there for the Volpin SimSport car. Great to see these guys having fun out there instead of maybe trying to battle for position, as Chris Downing nearly runs up the back of Matthew Kingston Lee in Lesmo 1. Maybe not expecting him to be as slow as he was when he took that position, but again, great avoidance from Chris Downing there.
That would have been the biggest insult of letting him through and then sending Ricane in an immediate punt through the second Lesmo, but fortunately managed to keep it out of the back of him, as I believe we see Verstappen trying to make him headway on the car in front of Marquez. He's up to P4 already, even after that bad start, so it shows you how quick Verstappen really is. Down to 10th after turn 1, as I'm being told in my ears from Ryan, who is clearly more observant and has a better memory than I do. Is he going to have a move up into turn 1? It looks a little far back.
Yeah, I'd say a little far back, even by Christoph Verstrapper's kind of margins, although it looks like the draft is doing something good for his car. Does have a little look, but I don't think he's near enough, Callum. He's nowhere close to the back of Marquez, although if he sets himself up well in turn 1, possibly a good slipstream through the Curva Grande, possibly towards the second chicane, he may find a move in there somewhere. Although, speaking of moves, RCI making moves in 2023. Not only do we have iRacing this year, but we do also have a esports paid prize pool event, and pre-qualifying has begun for the RCI 6 Hours Challenge Esports Series. We have 5 rounds, 50 teams allowed to sign up, limited tyre sets, custom BOP, and a targeted this is a minimum prize pool, bear in mind, €8,000 on the table. And this series aims to showcase the absolute best of what sim racing has to offer on Assetto Corsa Competizione. And in case you missed Friday's broadcast, Ryan Gill dropped a nice nugget of information to us that one of our partners, Fanatec, will be running a giveaway alongside the official broadcast, with more details on that to be revealed later on. And of course, if the paid esports series isn't your forte and you just want to compete for a little bit of fun, grab some of your friends together and get them on for 6 hours of good old endurance racing. We do have a no entry fee and no prize pool, with pre-qualifying of course open for that one as well. But great to see RCI taking a delve into the world that is esports, so keep your eyes posted. You can of course head on over to our website racerci.com and sign up and pre-qualify for any of these events at any time, of course, over there. And I don't know about you, Callum, but €8,000 sounds pretty tasty to me.
I mean, €8,000 could go a long way, as we see Verstappen going down to the outside for a move into turn one, potentially. He's going to have to hang it all the way around the outside if he's going to do it. I don't think Marquez is going to... Oh, Marquez is going to let him. I thought he was going to cut him off there, Marquez. I thought Marquez was going to take the natural line to that corner and sort of shove Verstappen out wide, maybe to dry for a little bit and force him onto the brakes, but Verstappen let through almost, it seems, by Marquez. Maybe Marquez is going to try and follow in sort of the wheel wells of Verstappen and sort of learn from him, see if he can drag him forward. So it's 7 seconds the gap over the road up the road now to the next car in front, and there's 16 minutes left remaining. So still doable for Verstappen, especially with that pace he showed in qualifying.
Yeah, definitely so. I think Marquez there wasn't quite expecting to see Verstappen's car alongside him turning into turn two. And it looked like he almost left the steering lock on, kind of turning right when he should have been turning left, and just allowed Verstappen to take the inside line of that turn two. As we now see a new penalty flashing up for Migazi down in P17, a 5-second penalty, as we head on over to our incidents room, shall we say. We have a lot of typing from Jake Boswell going on, so I hope you're sitting comfortably. But incident on lap 6, turn 6, involving the 24 and the 256. No further action. The 256 makes contact with the 24 and spins themselves. An incident on lap 3, turn 6, involving the 255 and the 134. The 255 moves across the 134 before being fully clear and spins themselves out. Incident on lap 2, turn 6, involving the 77 and the 54. No further action taken. The 77 brakes early and can't unfortunately avoid the back of the 54. Incident on lap 1, turn 1, involving the 30 and the 53. The 53 is pushed into the 30. We then have an incident on lap 6, turn 2, involving the 53 and the 27. 5-second penalty for car 27, which is Migazi we see down in P17 with that one. Overtake with contact, the 53 does end up spinning, but by their own power. We then have an incident on lap 1, turn 1, involving the 24 and the 53. A warning for car 24. The 24 does not hold brakes after being taken out and drives into the 53, pushing him into the 30 and almost spinning the number 30 out. And then finally, an incident on lap 1, turn 1, involving the 24, the 53, the 30 and the 2. The big one we saw at the start. Stop-go 10 for car number 53, deemed at fault. Lopez Garcia unfortunately nets that one for a takeout on the 24, which did unfortunately Constantina into the 2. An incident on lap 1 involving the 69 and the 53, racing incident. The 69 is rejoining with the 53 at his side, results in a collision, minor contact. Incident lap 6, turn 7, involving the 23 and the 256. No further action. 23 hits the nose of the 256. We then have a lap 8, turn 1, involving the 182 and the 29 racing incident. Lap 8, turn 2, involving the 58 and the 555 racing incident. Lap 8, turn 3, involving the 22 and the 909 racing incident. Lap 10, turn 6, involving the 31 and the 29 racing incident. Lap 16, turn 3, involving the 24 and the 22 and the 34, beg your pardon. The 34 attempts to overtake on the 22, but overcooks it and uses the escape road. However, position was returned, so no further action there. And lap 19, turn 2, involving the 182 and the 2, deemed a racing incident, minor contact. So although, Callum, we had a lot going on, it seems like Stewart's fairly forgiving tonight, and a lot of racing incidents and like joint deemed at faults and no further action. So biggest thing you can take away is 5 seconds, 2 drive-throughs and a stop-go 10.
Yeah, that stop-go 10's really going to hurt, though. Poor Lopez Garcia down in 20th place. I imagine that's going to cost him quite a few positions, even still now, with that having to sit in the pit lane for a solid 10 seconds. But yeah, I think the thing with Monza is you've either got to be really strict and you're going to be dishing out 5-10 seconds left, right and centre. I've done a bit of stewarding in the past with Monza. You sort of have to let a lot of these minor sort of nudges and taps go, and I hope the drivers sort themselves out really with sort of accepting fault and letting cars back through, as we've seen quite a bit, to be fair. Especially mine goes back to Chris Downing and that I believe turn 1 incident. But yeah, only a 5 and a stop-go 10, a few warnings to come out of that. That's fairly clean for Monza, but I think my commentator's curse at the beginning really has sort of rung true, that there was going to be quite a few more incidents than Friday's race.
Definitely so. Of course, different machinery here tonight. The Super Trofeo 2, Evo 2, sorry, not maybe what everybody's used to driving. GT3s, of course, has been in ACC since the beginning, and of course has been the staple, the bread and butter, if you like, to most of the drivers here. So finding themselves in machinery that handles that a little bit differently, a little bit less aero on it. The tyres not so grippy as a GT3, slightly different compound in the Pirellis on the one make series. Maybe has been a little bit of a recipe for disaster here at Monza, but like you say, Callum, great to see people kind of working together as such and being admitting fault. It does take a big man to admit when he's wrong, and it of course takes an even bigger man to give a giraffe a haircut. So it's great to see people admitting fault and being like, well, you know what, Chris Downing, like you said, missed the chicane, gave it back to Matthew Kingston-Lee on the Curva Grande, as we see a little bit of a bottleneck behind Andy Boardman, I believe that was, with Carlos Frau in the 17 nearly running each other off the road in turn 1. Again, typical pinch point. We see a few different braking zones, a few more cars run a little bit more aero, a few cars run a little bit less aero, and it sometimes does make for a lot of speed and not a lot of brakes for these guys.
I'm not 100% sure there, but I believe Schumann actually backed off into Parabolica to let Romanek through to try and get the run down into turn 1. He either had a very bad Ascari, and I'm calling that wrong, but it looked like they were sort of evenly matched this straight line running side by side, and it looked like he backed off to try and get the run down the straight. It hasn't quite worked out for him there, as we see Racingov going through Ascari there, I believe, and still Sorry, as I've been corrected, it's Jimenez. I'm getting confused with the fastest lap of Rachinov. Still a 6.9 second gap. He's not making any more ground on the cars behind, but he's certainly not losing any, so probably just managing the pace.
Yeah, definitely so. Managing the pace is what we have to do in ACC, and me and Jesse and everybody else kind of say it time and time again. ACC is a race of consistency, and this man here, Jose Jimenez, now riding on board through the night Italian sky down into turn 1. A big mess of the bollards on the anti-cuts. We have no more red bollards on the inside. They've all been pushed up to the Curva Grande, as you see. All the debris across the road from tonight's antics. A lot of polystyrene to clear up, and a lot of plastic boards to be returned to the Monza team here tonight after the RCI circus has finished. Coming down to the section chicane, looks rather naked at night without that bridge obscuring the night sky. Of course, the bridge was removed many moons ago. Jimenez looks like he kind of almost outbraked himself there as he went into the first part. Kind of had to wiggle it back towards the second part to not avoid jumping over the curb. More polystyrene scattered around Lesmo 1. Coming through to Lesmo 2. Great to see those two boards are still there on the left, the 100 and the 50 metres. They're normally the first kind of casualties of the opening lap, people taking avoiding action, although we did see Saint-Chev on Friday get pushed out on Lesmo 1. Went to go to Lesmo 2 and darted around the polystyrene boards. So great to see drivers kind of respecting the track scenery, shall we say. Big jump over the curb into the Ascari chicane. Be very careful flicking it over this one, Jimenez, as we saw in qualifying, the unique stunt jump towards the Monza Junior cut through on the outside line of Ascari. And now the flash of the orange hue of the street lights down to Parabolica. Hard on the brakes, very tidy indeed, a little bit squirmy as you put all the load through the front end of the car. Nice and tight line towards the marshal's post on the inside, and of course shortens a run out towards the start finish line decided to take a rather wide line just as I started saying he was shortening the corner. But across the line, got a 1:49.647, fastest lap being a 1:48.957, and of course his car's going to be running at their slight lightest now as we come towards the end of the race. Just under 8 minutes to go. Hopefully, Callum, everybody has got enough in the tank to keep going.
This is that awful moment now where you're starting to look at your predicted fuel remaining and your laps left and trying to do the maths as you drive. I've been at a racetrack, unfortunately, where we have ran our car out of fuel, and it is the worst feeling possible. Literally 200 metres before the line, yeah, it was very bad, especially it was my choice on how much fuel to put in it.
All eyes on you then, Callum, on that one.
Yeah, it was not a happy discussion with the driver in the podium celebrations afterwards, especially as the other driver who won was our other factory driver. So bittersweet, but yeah, it's now where you're sort of starting to think, okay, I've got a couple of laps left. Where's the leader behind me? Is he going to lap me before the end of the race? So could I save a lap of fuel there? But hopefully all of these guys have overcompensated. You can fit more than enough in this car to do the whole race of 50 minutes.
Yeah, certainly the one, isn't it? You know, you've got that big kind of area at the top of the tank that is just empty space, but you think if I carry too much and my next rival carries just enough to make it, I'm going to be that slight bit slower, and is that going to be enough to secure a position or not? Normally when I get to this stage of the race with fuel, I spend all my laps looking at the fuel, thinking, well, I'm going to run out, it's not going to be enough. What if it goes another lap? I'm going to have to stop. I can't stop because I'm going to lose all my positions, and then just overthink, and then you find yourself kind of running off the road and nearly into a wall. So fingers crossed our drivers tonight have overcompensated. Like you say, Callum, there's more than enough room in a Super Trofeo Evo 2 tank to get all the way to the end, and hopefully they've not burnt it all on the opening laps, kind of trying to warm their tyres up, dragging the brakes like we see a lot in ACC. And as the night comes in here at Monza, 8:53 p.m, I will, of course, slip in another self-promo for an ultimate event. Night Owl Season 12 sign-ups have opened just last week, I believe, at the beginning of this week. Stand me if I'm corrected. Sign-ups have opened pre-Saturday, I'm being told in my ear. Pre-qualifying has taken place at Laguna Seca, and Laguna Seca is also round 1. So if you're not good at Laguna Seca, now is the time to pre-qualify and to practice, so we are ready for February 11th when the Night Owl season kicks off. Usually we do tend to cast the Night Owl on RCI TV here on YouTube. Hopefully I'm not going to be shouted at for saying this, but it should be a possibility this year. Fingers and toes crossed, as we are of course looking to grow RCI this year more than ever, and looking to grow the YouTube channel as much as we can. And of course we can't do it without you guys here in the chat with us every Monday, regularly every Wednesday, or not Wednesday should I say, every Friday. And Elbo's out now, Matthias Thornberg, I believe John Eraser, possibly, I want to be saying. I could be completely wrong here.
Yeah, that's correct.
Matthias Thornberg, the big loser in that one, down to P17.
He sent it down the inside there, and again, it's another one of those where it's the person at fault was lost out naturally, so I don't think the stewards will have any real things to look into there. I'm going to have to rename you John Shilton at this rate. The amount of sponsors and how smooth you've been transitioning into them, I think we have to have another RCI change of name. Yeah, it's a Linus Tech Tips kind of night for John, with all of these shills and all of these announcements. But it is nice to see another event, hopefully being live streamed as well by ourselves at RCI.
Just wait until I get to the partners bit at the end.
Oh,
big God. Shill coming in. But anyway,
there's a new man in commentary and he has to do all of the shilling because I don't know what to say.
That's it. We'll just promote everything we can here at RCI and shout about everything as much as we can, including wonderful things such as iRacing, of course, paid esports league coming this year, among other exciting things. But as we are now looking at Ethan Scott still attacking the back of Matt Stevens, trying to find a way past. We saw him earlier outbreak himself into T1, goes for another move, maybe a little bit cautious now, Callum, knowing he's overcooked it once. He's not really going to want to be doing it again, and I don't know how you feel as a driver, but as soon as you make one mistake at one corner, it kind of haunts you for the rest of the race, and you almost underdrive yourself either into the corner or out of the corner, depending on what mistake you've made.
Yeah, it's a massive psychological thing. I mean, I've seen it not only in sim racing, but in real life as well. Obviously, my job at circuit being to deal with drivers and to get feedback, and it's a massive confidence thing. I mean, even a silly thing such as a late night, or a bad bit of sleep, or not turning up to the circuit on time, or stress, or whatever, can cause you to lose some time. But especially having an incident in a race with some of these race weekends, especially most UK races having short races and multiple of them in a weekend, it can massively affect you going from one race to another. But these guys seem to be doing all right. The times seem to be fairly consistent from what I'm seeing, as Jimenez has now pulled out a bit more of a gap at the front. He was starting to get closed in by Reichov in second place, but he's sort of pulled another 4/10 in the past few laps. So I think he's just managing. He's not going to be worried about anything.
Yeah, Jimenez is just going to be kind of trying to protect his lead for the next 2 minutes or so. Rachinov 7 seconds to the good ahead. And I'm being told Magazi has come down pit road. Not too sure why. We do have a ban on refueling at this RCI event. So unfortunately, if you can't make it, then you can't make it. It's going to be a DNF on the calendar for you. Although Magazi down the lane with 5-second penalty to his name, maybe thinks he's got to clear it before the end of the race, although he has been told in my ear, Ryan Gill, very keen out of the box window, has retired the car into the pit lane. Very unfortunate indeed, with just under 1 minute 30 to go. Possibly a fueling issue, realised he couldn't, refuel the car, and just decided to call it a day. Very unfortunate, of course, with the top 30 gaining points here tonight. We have 25 drivers still circulating, so of course everybody is a winner. And as we said at the beginning of the broadcast, those minute points you pick up here, maybe today wasn't your day. Maybe you could have done better. Verstappen maybe being one of them, could have been locked bumper to bumper with Jimenez had it not been for the turn 1 incident. And Jordan Daly, I've just realised, is still circulating, I believe, unless I'm seeing another Triple R-esque car. Daly down in P24 after a kind of bit of a spin, has managed to keep going, Callum, so it's great to see Daly not giving up on this one and trying to get some bags some bags in the points, trying to get some points in the bag for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it still manages to keep going. I mean, he's so far down on the scoreboard that I can't personally see him on any of my screens, but if he's still circulating, that's quite impressive. I mean, he's clearly going for those last few fringe points, hoping that he can sort of use them at the end of the season to pull himself back up maybe a couple of positions, and they do count. They do all make a difference. Championships do get won or lost by very, very, very small margins, especially in a series like this.
Yeah, we saw when we gave the championship rundown how close P15 to 20 were. I think there's about 5 points in it, and of course 5 points is a very small margin indeed. As the clock hits 0, our leader, the 122, sorry, represented by the triangle at the top side of the map coming through Lesmo 2, has of course begun the last lap here. We will see Andy Boardman looking behind, is under pressure from Carlos Frau. We have Jordan Daly ahead, although Daly I think has the legs on him to be able to pull out enough of a gap that it won't be hindering Boardman, although Frau looks very fired up indeed, jumping that Lamborghini Super Trofeo over the curbs, trying to get every single inch of the road going. But this man here has driven a stupendous race, Jose Jimenez, for the XBD Emerald Racing team in the pink livery. We have a green and a gold variant of their car in the race tonight, but the 122, their pink machine, it seems to be a very common theme here at RCI. If you pick a pink livery such as Wolf Matushka, you might be winning a few races. And Jose Jimenez following in the footsteps as he rounds the Parabolica for the last time. Your round 2 winner, Jose Jimenez, takes the checkered flag. A great drive from him, fending off all of the madness behind that ensued. Vensy Rachinov with a great kind of comeback drive manages to keep it in P2, and this man here, Verstappen, found himself down in P10 from the first chicane, but comes across the line to take the bottom step of the podium. Marquez comes into P4, Adam Romaniuk P5, Benjamin Schumann I believe in P6, Andy Boardman crosses in P7, manages to fend off Carlos Frau just by half a second. Tom Shipston then comes in P9, Holland P10, Kingston Lee P11, a little bit of a wait, Chris Downing comes through, and then another little bit of a wait before another Belgian driver, Roskam, comes through as well. John Aracer should retain P14. There he goes across the line as Jose Jimenez there seems to find an escape road down the second chicane. Jumps the Lamborghini over the speed hump as Matt Stevens, Ethan Scotty, Matthias Thornberg, Richard Phillips round out your P15 to 18. We see a late 15-second penalty for our very own RCI Carlos flash up at the end there. And we do have a few more stewards reports to go through. Although at this point in time, I don't think any of these are going to be kind of detrimental. Other than Carlos's to car number 30, we have a incident on lap 27, turn 2, involving the 20 and the 30, a 15-second for car number 30. 30 had a takeout on 20, but the position was returned. So that was for Cuscio, who does, of course, gain from the 15-second penalty. You see him there in P20, rounding out the scoreboard there. So absolutely crazy scenes tonight, Callum. Great to have you alongside me in your first race. It was probably a very chaotic one from the get-go, but it's a big learning curve, and hopefully you have enjoyed yourself tonight, and we brought you some fantastic racing to kind of get your teeth into as your first show.
Yeah, massive amount of fun. I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket because I predicted everything perfectly. Not only was it going to be a massive contact fest, but Jimenez did beat out Verstappen. So that's 1-0 to me in terms of a mini-series between me and you that I think we should start as of this race. But yeah, no, a really, really, really close race at Monza. A lot of contact, a lot of cars flying up and down the order. But I think Verstappen will be really happy with that. Like, to come down from P10 all the way back up to P3 in that sort of race, in that sort of field, is a very, very big achievement, and disappointed that we couldn't see the battle between the two of them at the front, but it is what it is, and he'll take third place and quite a hefty haul of points.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Jose Jimenez and Verstappen go toe-to-toe as they did at Imola. Couldn't even separate them last time out. And here is your final points board, results board. Jose Jimenez takes the win from Vince Rachinov. Christoph Verstappen in P3. Marquez comes in P4. Adam Romaniuk in P5. Benjamin Schumann P6. Andy Boardman P7. Carlos Frau P8. Tom Shipston P9. And Holland takes P10. And of course, everybody from tonight will be scoring. And very interestingly, fastest lap did not go to Jimenez, did not go to Rachinov, and did not go to Verstappen. However, went to Lopez Garcia all the way down in P23 on the last lap of the race. Ryan Gill was telling me in my ear. So a cheeky snag of points for the fastest lap, I believe, here at RCI.
I want to see that lap and make sure there was no corner cutting in that. Obviously, the ACC system will have done that for us, but that's an incredible feat to do on the last lap of an effectively endurance race. Anything over than sort of a 20-minute sprint in racing is seen as an endurance race. With the tyres in the state that they would have been after an hour with no pit stops, I don't quite understand how he's pulled that one out of the bag.
Yeah, nearly 50 minutes on the same set of Pirellis and still manages to pull a faster lap time than any of our leaders. But for tonight, we will, of course, say our farewells, say our goodbyes, and, 2023 is the year for RCI. We, of course, have a load of events going on. We have our first kind of dip into a real season of iRacing, where you can head on over to our Discord and pick up some discount codes if you've not already made an account or dipped your toe in that water. We do have 3 months for a free trial for new accounts only, and we do have a 12-month promotion for $49.99 US. Again, for new accounts only, which would be ideal if you're looking to partake in a full season of RCI iRacing. And of course, this year we do have our RCI 6-hour esports challenge series, 5 rounds, 50 teams, and limited tire sets with a custom BOP and a targeted €8,000 minimum prize pool. We have a partner giveaway from Fanatec on the broadcast. More to come on that one, as Ryan Gill gave us a little snippet on Friday in our ears for that one. And of course, if you don't fancy paying an entry fee or paying to race or winning money, you can of course sign up for our free version of this event. Grab a few friends and get yourself together for 6 hours of wonderful endurance racing. And while we're here, a message, of course, from our partners who make all of this possible here at RCI TV, aka Informatica, for providing our server solutions here at RCI. However, they also do provide high-end hardware, peripherals, and accessories, including sim gear. So if you are in their target market, be sure to check them out online. Driver61.com. You can, of course, get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code with a link in the description below and heading on over to driver61.com. And lastly, Fanatec, your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment on the market. You can, of course, use our affiliate link in the description below if you are looking to pick up some new hardware in 2023, and it won't cost you a penny. However, it does help us here with the running costs at RCI. And of course, down below, you can find links to all of our socials, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all of the trendy ones now, along with Facebook and obviously our YouTube and such likes. So none of this, of course, would be possible without you guys at home. So we do appreciate your company. Whether you've chatted, whether you've lurked, everything helps here with us. But yeah, remember to like the thumbs up button, should we say, and smash that subscribe button, as all these YouTubers are saying these days, and help us grow even more in 2023. But from myself, John Dalton, from my co-caster, Callum Kerwin, who has been new tonight and hopefully with me for the rest of the season, from Ryan Gill behind the cameras, from our stewards who have made a swift exit out of the box tonight. Not a single one is lurking there for any after-school shenanigans. We bid you farewell. We hope you have a good rest of the week, and we shall hopefully catch you same time on RCI TV on Friday for our GT3 Championship. Take care.